Hi, Bill Burnett here again. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you frame that question that you always want to ask at the end of the interview, which is, when can I expect to hear back from you? And if you recall from the peak end question video, the very last thing you want to do in the job interview, of course, is ask that peak end question. So you're actually going to do your housekeeping before you get to that peak end question. So, what we're really asking is, what is your intention in terms of getting back to me? And it turns out that the psychology around the intention question indicates that the intent question itself can be an influential question. That is, just by asking somebody's intent to take some action, if they say they intend to do it, it becomes more likely that they'll actually do it. Now, there hasn't been a lot of work done around this question in terms of what modulates the power of this question. And we know from lots and lots of other psychological studies around question types that two things tend to modulate the effectiveness of these kinds of questions. One is how relevant the question is to the person that has to answer it, and the other is how much elaboration they have to go through in answering the question. And so while we don't have the science to support that this is relevant in the intent question, it's reasonable to think that it would have the same kind of effect. And so what we want to do is ask the intent question in a way that it really demands a little more elaboration. So we're actually going to ask two questions. The first question sets up the second question, and you can always introduce the first question by saying, I have a question and I have a follow-up question immediately after it. And the first question is essentially this. I know that you're going to go through a process to complete the interview process, and then internally you probably have a process you go through to come to a decision. And for the sake of argument, imagine that your decision is to hire me. What are the steps you would have gone through in order to get to that point? And if they ask you, why do you ask that, you could say something like, well, my follow-up question will make that very obvious. And when you ask the follow-up question, it's, when can I expect to hear back from you? And you can always add in, the reason I asked you for the steps is because when you think about all the things you have to do, you're more likely to give a more accurate estimate of when you can get back to me, because it always turns out to be more time-consuming and complicated than we think it will be. At any rate, that's the intent question. Keep in mind that you want to do your housekeeping before you ask the peak end question, because that's where the real power is. But anyway, good luck in your interviews, and I look forward to seeing you again in one of these videos. Thank you.